We often get some questions about ADA compliance, particularly around balloon decor in the event industry and the entertainment industry. And so I want to take a few minutes and tell you a little bit about what we think is important for you to consider as a business owner in this space, thinking about ADA compliance. I'm Jeff Kelly, and I hope you're going to learn a lot here. What we're going to start with kind of an overview of what ADA compliance is and like why it even comes up. Then we're going to talk about some of the specific steps you can take in your business to improve the usability for people of all abilities on your website. And then I'm going to give you some options if this is a problem that you want help solving from someone else. I'm going to give you a few options of how you might move that forward. So ADA compliance is really more generically like that. That's a very U.S. term, United States term. ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's where that acronym comes from, ADA. And it's really all about wanting to make a business more easy to interact with for a person with any level of ability. Particularly, you're right, we're talking about digital marketing, so we're talking about websites in particular right now. So let's say that you have a visually impaired website visitor. How does your website perform for that visually impaired visitor? Perhaps they're blind and they have no vision, or their vision is impacted so much that they're essentially not able to see your pages. Is your website set up to support a screen reader or to support a really high level of zoom? Is it gonna handle that? Is it gonna look horrible? Is the layout gonna be bad? How's that gonna go? Let's say that you have a visitor that is using an assisted pointing device. And so they're using some sort of tool to help them move through a page on your website to get to the thing that they actually want to select. You would think of as clicking or tapping on your phone screen, right? But they're using some sort of assistance device to get to that spot and select that item. Is your website set up for that? This is what usability is really about on your website. There, this often comes up because people hear about lawsuits, right? Where there's someone in the community locally to them who is suing also all the restaurants in town because it's too difficult to get into their front door with a wheelchair, or the size of a parking space is not compliant with the current version of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or this sorts of thing. So this is often why business owners hear about this and start asking questions about it. The interesting thing is that when we're making a measurement to determine if something is compliant, it's very, very easy. When we're actually thinking about a website, it's actually much more difficult, and there's a lot less precision in how we go about this. So there's no way, for example, to say that a website is completely compliant with usability standards and current law. And you could look at whatever the laws are in any given country. There's generally no way to do a simple test with a measurement device to say compliant or non-compliant. And so that means that when businesses get taken to court for their website, for some sort of aspect of their website, it's also much more difficult for it to be clearly understood whether or not that experience is compliant and not, or non-compliant. And so there's kind of two levels. I mean, there's multiple levels to working on accessibility and usability of your presence online. The level we're going to talk about today is basically the first level, the basics, right? If you have a multi-million dollar business, lots and lots of customers, you're doing retail sales or e-commerce sales on your website, you've got a big storefront going, you might be $100 million business. You're going to work on solving this problem in a much different way because your potential liability is much, much larger. If you're a small business, you're making a few $100,000 a year. This is the liability here is very different. The legal liability is very different. Not that you would be liable or not liable, but the amount of money that's at stake is a lot less. It may or may not be something you've considered before. It may not be something, or may not be something you want to put a bunch of money toward making sure you're good at. But what I want to point out is when your website is more usable, you've got a bigger market, right? If your competition isn't doing anything for usability, regardless of the legal liability, if someone who has an altered visual ability visits your website and your website works for them and their screen reader or whatever tools they're using to move through your website, but your competitions do not, you're going to get more business. I want to make sure you hear that, right? That this isn't just about legal liability and is some sort of activist going to come through and file a frivolous lawsuit about my business, right? And all that. It's actually about also gaining a larger market. And if this is an area where you're going to go ahead and invest in, it's also an area where you can make sure is shared and people know that this is an area where your business focuses and wants to do a better job and wants to be the place to come for people with many different levels of ability so that they can do business with you, right? It literally opens up a larger market for you. So not only does it assist with making a more usable website for all abilities, it helps address potential legal liability in your jurisdiction, but it also can help you reach a larger market and sell more because you have more people who are capable of doing business with you online and learning about your business online. I'll give you another reason why you might want to work on this area, which is that often the activities, the specific changes that would be made to a website to make it more accessible will also help improve conversion of the visitors who do come to your website of all abilities. Getting the design right so that the website flows when using a keyboard, it helps people navigate your website more easily. Making it very clear where the calls to action are, that helps people convert at a higher level because they're going to think, oh, do I want to go ahead and contact this business? So accessibility, usability, these areas, they have a direct impact on not only your potential liability and your potential market size, but they can also help you increase conversion across all your customers. So there's a lot of interesting reasons to work on this area, right? So let me give you some examples of changes that would be made to a website to make it more accessible. So you've heard me talk about a couple. One is like being able to use, I'll be real specific, use your keyboard, load up your page, start pressing tab. Tab is the key on the keyboard used to move the area of focus through a web page. We should be able to follow the logical progression of your website, your web page, all the way from top to bottom by just pressing tab. If that thing starts jumping up and down and moving all around, you're in a bad spot, particularly for use of a screen reader, because screen readers are going to use the tab button on a keyboard to indicate to the browser that it wants to move to the next section to then read that section. Here's another very specific example. All images should have what's called alt text specified, which is a human readable description of that image. This way, when a screen reader, when tab moves it forward to that image, it has something to say to the user of that screen reader about, this describing the image. If all you have up there is an image with a horrible file name and no alt text, then there's no way for that visitor who is using a screen reader to listen to the page and experience that page. There's no way for them to have any idea what your image is about. Another great example is the contrast of text and image. So it's very, very popular right now to have what we would call a hero image design on a web page, where you load up the page, there's a menu at the top, there's a big image that represents, conceptually what that page is about. Maybe it's a blog post, maybe it's your homepage. We call that a hero image. And then the trend right now is to put text over that image that says, welcome to our business, or maybe the business name, or maybe the slogan. Well, if that image, if there isn't consistent contrast between the text and the image, someone with a different level of visual ability, maybe it's color blindness, maybe it's other things, they may or may not be able to read what's literally on the screen right there, right? So what do you do? So contrast matters. So if you have a dark background, you need bright colored or light colored text. If you have the opposite, you need to flip it, right? Whatever it is, it needs to be very easy to read the text on whatever background it is. In balloon decor, this is a common issue where we're using all sorts of pastels and colors on a website, and then the text is also different colors. We got to make sure that text is high contrast to the background. So on a hero image, a very common technique is to use what's called an overlay, or create a darker background behind the text in that text section and then have the text in front of it. I'm picking on images right now. Let's pick on what used to be the absolute worst thing about images, which is that we would all put text in images, literally text in the image, right? So you'd grab the image and you'd go to, remember before the days of Canva, you'd go to whatever image editor you were using and you'd put your headings right there in the image, like as text in the image instead of text over the image. There's no way for a screen reader to read the text that's inside of an image. But there's an interest coming back to, helping people use your website and do business with you and convert more effectively. That's actually a really horrible practice for SEO as well, for search engine optimization. And there's no way for a search engine to understand the text and what you're trying to communicate inside of an image when you've done that. And so, when we work with clients on simply doing improvements to their website for search engine optimization, we're often pulling text out of images and graphics and separating those things out. And it's really important for accessibility as well. So these are just a few tips, a few, specific examples of what you can improve in a website to assist with ADA compliance, accessibility, usability. There's there's a huge amount of things that can be done to improve a site. Our team has a checklist, right? And it's tailored to the specific types of businesses we focus on and we do the best job at serving in digital marketing. And so when you work with my team on accessibility, we're literally going through a very specific checklist to give you here is what we think you should do, or here are the tasks that we're going to do for you because that's what you've hired us to do. Now, understand that, again, coming back to the beginning, there's levels to this, right? You can use a tool to do a little mini audit of your website and tell you what the strengths and weaknesses are from an accessibility standpoint. But that tool can only do things that a tool can do. It can't do things that a human does. It can't do things that necessarily a screen reader does, right? And so if you really want to know whether or not it's easy to use your website, the best way to find out is to have a human use a screen reader or some of these other tools that people will really be using when they visit your site to actually interact with your site and identify the issues and problems that they're having. The cost of having a real person do an audit and assessment is completely different than just grabbing some free tool, and the quality of the information you will have about what needs to be addressed will be completely different as well. Yeah, there's a lot of people who will just go grab an accessibility app and throw that little app or widget on their site, and now there's a little picture of the person there, this like the accessibility symbol, and we now have an accessible, usable website. But again, remember, tools can only do so much, and those tools, can a screen reader even interact with that tool? Have you ever taken the time to actually find out? So there's these cheap programmatic little tools you can use, but what I want you to understand is that accessibility and usability is about far more than just something some tool can do for you. If this is important to your business, if you want to grow the number of people who can do business with your business when they're working with your website, it's important to take the time to actually figure out what the issues are for someone with a different ability. And that's where you might then hire a team or a person to then help you get that figured out and help identify exactly what you need. So I encourage you to think about, do you have concerns about the legal liability? Does it apply based on your jurisdiction? Do you have legal liability? I haven't talked about that at all because every jurisdiction is a little different. If you want to, in some cases we can answer that question for you if you reach out to us, and in some cases we can't. But do you want to improve the conversion of all visitors? Do you want to make the website easier to use? Do you want to solve this problem? These are the things that you have to decide for your business. Now, we certainly recommend that you do the basics when it comes to compliance because you're improving the number of people who can do business with you and the conversion rate of all the visitors that are coming to you because we're doing best practices. We're doing good things for layout and design. So that's a little bit about accessibility and usability and what you might think when it comes to your business. If you like this content, please take a minute to share it with somebody else who you know who might be thinking about this. Maybe you've got a partner or an associate at your business right now, or a call, somebody at another business that you think would greatly benefit from a little bit of speaking about accessibility and usability. Hit the like button if you like this. And if you want to check out a bunch of other videos about digital marketing and how we approach it and what you should know as a business owner, head over to the profile and just scroll through and see if there's something there that you would like to watch. I hope you're having a great day.